You're listening to Live Free, Think Free on 90.1 KPFT Houston, your home for uncensored news and underground music since 2011.
Well, welcome. Let's dive right in. This is another week. Derrick, Micah, got lots to cover with you. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in. Right now, we are live off Odyssey, number of places on Facebook. We're back on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, we were censored for about 2 weeks. We got a little smack on the hand.
But we got a Google story about YouTube censorship. So
we'll see if that's story. So we got a lot to dive in. As usual, we're going to talk about solutions. We're going to talk about news, and we're going to play some music as well. And if you guys are seeing this, I don't know if you guys are seeing the same thing we're seeing on the camera. There's like this psychedelic blue all over us. We promise we're okay. But in case those of you who are watching, not listening, are seeing us glowing, it's just the camera for whatever reason. Please ignore it. But let's go right into our first story. I want to talk about this song, Micah.
Okay.
I know you've heard about it.
Yep.
We're a show here that we talk about music. We talk about politics. And this one is a mixed song that, whether it meant to be or not, is a political song. And that is the hit sensation, the viral sensation by unsigned, just regular dude in his truck in Virginia, I think. Richmond, north of Richmond. I'm sure you guys have heard it all over the place the last couple weeks. It is going viral, to say the least. Apparently, he got like a couple $1 million offer to sign with some record label, turned it down, doesn't want to do that at the moment. I saw he posted a video of playing in a farmer's market instead. But he's having a moment right now. So let's go ahead. I want to just show you guys. We're going to Google this song. If you haven't heard it, it's called Richmond, north of Richmond. I'm sure you've heard about it. You'll get a real Micah reaction.
Yeah.
So look, I just want to do, before we actually play the song, yes, we're going to play the song, just to show you the song is being interpreted by most of the media. And yes, the media we know has a bias, but especially left-leaning media, as a right-wing anthem, a conspiracy theory anthem, just a moment. But it's just so frustrating to me, Micah.
I'm trying to understand something. So it's a new song. It hasn't been out that long, but already the left wing is saying, oh, that's them. That's them. It belongs to them. And not only is it their song, it's an anthem for them.
Yeah,
I hadn't
exactly.
known that.
So here, Oliver's Richmond, north of Richmond, is an overnight sensation with the welfare Cadillac. Let's see what with the first time a welfare bashing country song became an overnight success. So they're interpreting it as welfare bashing.
So were we welfare bashing when we were on the streets of Houston talking about the bailouts for the welfare for the banks?
The BBC says the hit song that divided the U.S. It seems like it's uniting a lot of people.
The whole country's divided already. I only heard this song once.
Richmond, north of Richmond, became a chart-topping, conspiracy theory anthem. It seems like he's getting some fair coverage over here. Billboard just says
he's all over the place.
He introduces himself. It is the #1 song on iTunes. Unsigned artist, recorded in his backyard. And here's a little more.
I kind of like that.
What I'm talking about, Micah. This one, a new country anthem is written for a world turned upside down. That's the actual only kind of fair opinion I saw, and actually came from the Washington Post. You got Oliver Anthony and the incoherence of right-wing populism. Just all this really critical stuff, and again, trying to draw a connection, claiming, like,
I wonder what ignited them to jump in there and say something about this song so much.
If you go to the Wikipedia,
because there's a lot of songs out there on the radio.
The Wikipedia page already calls it a blue-collar anthem and a right-wing anthem. Yeah, within days, of course, it's topped multiple articles when you read them. They try to attribute it to
Billboard.
Right-wing influencers are boosting it. Well, there's only maybe a few million of them. I don't think they can account for everybody across the board who's liking this song and who's interested in it.
Do right-wingers run Hollywood?
The media is using this as an opportunity to say, and that's one other thing when you hear the songs. I know you guys are like, okay, well, let me hear the song. Should we hear a hit song and it makes you tap your foot or bob your head and then think, wait, what's that person's politics? Can I get along with this song? Or if he said a word I don't like or something? We'll talk about that.
If you're hanging out with us for this show, check it out. Listen to it as music, listen to the message, and then give us some comments on it. We really love to engage. That's one of the greatest things about this show. And we do engage on the articles, but let's engage in this piece of culture from our today.
Exactly. So we're going to play you guys the song. We're not going to play the full clip of the original video. You'll see it in the corner. But what we're going to play, which is, I think, a good way to maybe dispel some of this stuff coming from the media, we're going to play, I found this on Twitter. It's just a compilation of reaction videos. You've seen the videos on YouTube where people say, old man reacts to this, or people react to this, or just individuals listening to a song or a movie and telling you what they think about it. This is a compilation of people of all colors, all races, listening to this song, and most of them are in tears by the end. And honestly, it kind of hit me in that same way. I didn't cry, but I definitely was like, wow, this is some real stuff. But you listen to it, you gauge the reviews and the responses, and we'll be right back. Check out this song. This is Richmond, North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours, for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul.
I can rock with that.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end.
Okay.
The rich men, north of Richmond.
Oh, this is true. Tell 'em, buddy.
Some of us can't say what we absolutely know is true, and he's articulating it.
I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me,
What?
people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, it ain't. It's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men north of Richmond. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Damn.
Damn.
Oh my God! Oliver Anthony.
Richmond.
All right, guys. Hopefully you heard that. Sorry if the connection's coming through a little choppy. We're doing our best here. Let us know in the comments. We're going to check in the comments on Odyssey, on Rockfin, of course, on Facebook and YouTube. We got a couple of comments already. Some telling. I'm guessing you mean like he's telling the truth. And I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Micah? I mean, you've heard it before, obviously, but seeing those reactions of all these different
that was new to me. I hadn't seen a reaction video. When you asked about it, I was kind of like, yeah, I heard that song. Someone sent reactions. That was pretty interesting. I think a lot of people can identify just with suffering, whether you agree with everything in a person's life or not, or everything in their views. to lose empathy towards people suffering and what they view as the cause of it. I think you divorce a certain aspect of humanity from yourself when you do that. And they're empathetic with the plight. And that's why we see these people wiping. I think in some ways, various things he's touching on, and I'll have to, even while the song in the studio, so I haven't listened to it the second time, but I think that some of the pieces that I did hear, some of those things about everyone, they're like in every person's problem. You hear about them in the working all the time, people that are really set. Having the dollar go down while you're working, chasing it is 10. We got stories.
Everybody's dealing with inflation.
Yeah. I mean, they say, and I don't know if maybe we'll skip this story, but they say your average person is spending $700 more a month now because that's, so I think he's hitting on things that people, they can identify with, at least aspects of it. And he's doing it with so much passion and so much like humanity that their empathy and their willingness to connect and their openness to hear the expression, it's just touching their heart. So, they're wiping that we saw. They're not looking to be divisive with, looking like, they're just absorbing. I think that's a way more sincere approach to the music than some of the, what you might see from critics, Well,
we got a comment here from Sonny Klein Roberts over on Facebook, said, he said it straight. Reminds me of protest songs of the 60s. Politicians don't care about me or you. They only care about their objectives. And then added, just do the right thing. Everybody's frustrated. If you get plumbing done, do it correctly. Don't try and screw anybody over. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
I think generally those are probably statements that people can agree with, like do the right thing. And I would say, to me, why it's a divisive song, that probably every person of whatever their politics are, if you took those words out, and maybe if you took out the jab about people on welfare or whatever, would probably get down with it. And maybe some people can't handle the Epstein reference because he said they got time doctors on that island. The statement of like working all day for bullshit.
And by them, we're talking about the Richmond, north of Richmond, having time for the miners.
Exactly. The people in DC, those are the ones. So why should we not talk about that? That's not a conspiracy. Anyways, we wanted to start with a little bit of music and get to that. We're going to continue on, guys. We will have more, so stay tuned for that. I want to mention as well, with Houston-related stories, I'm playing a show at the White Swan. If anybody's a few hours,
if you want to go to the White Swan,
wherever you're at,
people are on the show too.
There's like 15 or 20 people playing. I'm going to be the very first performer. I'm opening up. I'm happy to
Don't
do
be
so.
late.
Central 33 performing at White Swan.
Nice. I'm glad White Swan, it's been for a little while, but there for a while it was shut down. And it's historic. I mean, it's going back to 46. So, you're playing one of the oldest venues in Houston at this point. That's pretty cool.
Is actually the White Swan is the first place I ever booked my own show as well. The first show I ever did as Visionary Noise was in White Swan, a benefit for called Victims of Violence.
You are incorrect. The very first benefit at Walters on Washington. And it was a benefit for the victims of violence.
Okay, maybe I was wrong on that.
But
one of the early ones was over at White Swan.
And that's a great thing. And White Swan can have big acts that come through. Well, not huge acts, but big acts that come through, regional acts. But they also, have always given a spot to people just getting in there and trying to do something. So,
well, let's jump into this, guys. So Houston has a mayoral race, not just a mayoral race, city council,
they're running.
Controller. They're on a run to see if they can get to City Hall first. Whoever makes it there first gets to be the next mayor. And I happen to be in the race, just for full disclosure. But I found a couple of articles that came out this week that are really interesting about, at least in my terms, about Houston. But again, as our Houston stories tend to, it has to do with the national scene of politics too. Here's one of them from Texas Monthly. Houston is young, dynamic. Its next leader won't be. The leading candidates are septuagenarians, State Senator John Whitmire and U.S. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. What happened to the city of the future? And this isn't just like an ageist kind of thing.
City.
I think there's something worth discussing. So it says this. Houston has a median age of 34, 5 years below the nationwide average, and nearly a quarter of its population is younger than 18. It's a dynamic, diverse, fascinating, often infuriating place whose defining trait has always optimism. And they go on talking about past candidates, but they mention how
That was such a mixed review.
The current I know. The current candidates are 73, Jackson Lee, Whitmire 74, Turner, who's on his way out, is 68. He spent 27 years in the Texas legislature. And it just goes on to just show how this is kind of a thing where most of the candidates or the people who are winning offices have been there 30 plus years. They're in their 70s and older. Talks about how one of the council controller candidates, Chris Hollins, he's 37. I'm 38. I'm one of the youngest two people in the mayoral race. There's another woman who's a little younger than me. So there's a traffic of 30 and 40, but we're not the ones being elected at the moment. And it came out a couple days later from the Chronicle. And for me, more importantly than their age, 30, 40 years in politics, which is, I think, the more.
And I was going to say that, in the legislatures in D.C., I wonder how micro this, I know obviously Houston's younger on average. See,
well, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I think it really relates to that, national level, is that you got Biden, Trump, you got what's his name, Mitchell. I can't remember these politics. Mitch McConnell having that freeze. Did you see that last week where he was giving a press conference and he literally just, and it took about 5 minutes for the people around him to say, Mitch, you okay?
That's a bad look.
And then he had the other Nancy, whatever, the lady who's now being wheelchaired around. Those are the things I think are more. They're 80, 90 years old, and they have to her now has power of attorney because she can't even do it. So then who's really running the office? It's but those positions are so important. And I see this somewhat on the local level. For example, Sheila Jackson Lee.
Isn't the Speaker of the House fourth in control? So you might have a person.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to them. Sheila Jackson Lee, who this article is talking about, she's one of the older women and she's one of the contenders for city council. She has this congresswoman seat that they don't want to just give up. So a young black woman and former council member Amanda Edwards was in the mayoral race. But then as soon as Sheila Jackson Lee entered, she announced she was dropping out and running for Sheila's seat. So it seems they want to make sure they can pass the seats on in the positions to somebody that's part of the team. And so it just stays entrenched in the group, and so
sounds like nepotism.
It is. And so 1 in 5 voters in Houston, 1 in 5 registered voters typically participate in local elections. And even that figure omits residents who are eligible to vote but are not registered. There's a similar city, much smaller, of 750,000 people in Seattle. They get 265,000 people to come out in the 2021 election. In Houston's 2019 mayoral race, 240,000 people turned out. So the city of 3.5 million people, and that's not even 200,000 people for Sylvester Turner. That's split up among all 12 candidates, right? So it's not very, and then even in some city council districts, as low as 6,000 people voted to elect the council members. So you got a really low voter turnout, but then you have the median age of the average voter is 60 years old, meaning that half the electorate was born before Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And in the city where there's 47% of residents that are Latino, only 18% of them are part of the voting base. The share of city's voters 65 and older is 38%, triple the group share of the Houston's voting age population. So they're only 14% of the population, 38% of the voting bloc.
I think I see it kind of as a problem of not just I don't see it as a problem of older people rights and doing things as much as other people not coming to, the conversation. I think that it's also sometimes I think it's the backing, right? Because, we got the problem of the entrenched. But when we're just talking about the more or less the age of the citizens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the average citizen, I don't care so much about that to be heard. And I think that perhaps it's symptomatic that the only voices running are voices who are heard because they're the only ones who think that government could do anything for them. Your average person goes to City Hall and their city council member can't do anything for them. So people soon get, apathetic, because I think even if you didn't think you could win, if people who supported them were out there talking about it,
mm-hmm.
I think there'd be more. And all we get instead is, a minor percentage, a fifth or less voting for people that then, are you included in the decision-making process? Is your voice even heard culturally in the ideas of the society, or the idea of society kind of kept in a different compartments? Like, here's the religious ideas, and here's the political ideas, and over here's the artistic ideas, and they don't mix. And my God forbid some musician try to say something semi-political, because that's getting out of their role.
They're out of their lane.
And I think that's kind of lies in opposition to believing that people are beautiful, and the whole idea of a liberal republic, because you have to believe that people are capable to have such a type of community. By it becoming more and more compartmentalized like that, people are not believing they're capable. They're not believing other people are capable. They're not believing young capable. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
And it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy.
For me, it's also not so much about the age. I think this is an interesting stat and bring conversation, but I was happy to see this report is because, again, I ran in 2019, I'm running now, and it is my belief that the reason there's 38% or more of the people who are 60 and 70 and above voting, and less than 10% of anybody 40 and under really voting, is because of the topics. And
half of them are over 60, it says.
Or as this article points out right here. So right here it says the results of race. And yes, if you're a homeowner in your 60s or younger and you got a home, those are going to things that apply to you. But if you're a college student living in Houston, that's not really the top of your list.
It's like this, I think. Young people make great parents. Parents make great grandparents, because they can't run around and chase the baby and play with it and drop it and all that type of fun. And I think that there's something to be said for that with regard to neighborhood access. You don't drop them wrestling around, you know what I'm saying? That's not all life is. You said young college students, or I guess you could call fresh outs, people just starting their lives, young couples, young single individuals, the concerns they have that perhaps would intersect with government, because I'm sure everybody has a lot more concerns than what could have something to do with government. They're not even being addressed.
And that's kind of why, again, this is why I felt the desire to want to run, because I feel like, hey, if nobody else is in there, and not even just because I'm younger, even though
it's like only having grandparents. We're stuck with grandparents because of this.
And those grandparents only want to talk about certain issues.
Yeah.
But I also think it's by design, right? Because the polls claim, hey, this is what the voters care about. But again, if the voters are half 60 and older. Exactly. So we're not getting the full scope of what people actually care about. And my belief is, if somebody starts talking about real and bigger, broader issues, like I'm trying to do and other people I see trying to do, and then you actually get the media coverage, then all of a sudden you're going to find there's a demographic in Houston that does care about these other topics. They just haven't been represented. And
so that influences the priorities of the issues that are real.
Exactly.
So obviously these issues are real, security and all those things.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, all that's real, but the royal candidates are bringing up are real too, and other issues we don't even know. Decisions. Someone has to.
Yeah. Houston. I know some of our audience is all over the place. Mayor race. At the moment, the city of Houston, a non-violent drug offense from 2005 on my record, and I ran for mayor in 2020. Now the city is trying to prevent me from running this time. We just released a press release. If you want to check it out, you can find it and go look on the blog page. That's the campaign website for my. Well, we've got current council members, previous council members, and current mayoral candidate, supportive of my effort to run. And I can see, guys, we're having really bad connection issues. I do apologize about that. But I just want to say, thank you to anybody who is supporting my effort. Texas is not so free. They are the city's trying to claim that myself as a felon when I was 20 years old, $18 years ago, that I forfeit. Care about that? Please share it around. And we're cutting out. I'm seeing the comments. I see the screen. It's internet issues. We're doing our best here. If the audio is not coming through clean, I will edit this afterwards and do my best to make it listenable. I do apologize. We're working with new setting. Hopefully, though, when you can hear us and see us good, because we're using better equipment. In the meantime, let's go to another song and sort of bad
Someone
news.
entrapped.
Gotta get to the top, gotta play cards, cruising down the interstate. Some work for minimum wage, some anticipate a large estate. From the supermarket to the pharmacy, gotta be what they want you to be. On the radio and on TV, in the 21st century, we're living wild and free. Goodbye, American torture. Say hi to the American dream. All it takes is one bad slip, and all it takes is one good trip to see what's beyond the veil. And there's so much that's beyond yourself. Tell me what you want me to know. What more is there in store? You always had to have more. Goodbye, American torture. Say hi to the American dream.
have Jeremy's nuisance on stage, as far as I'm concerned. Spinning rod, not trying to hurt your feelings enough. Just keep this fucking ass off the stage, please.
Hey guys, we're back. Hopefully you can hear us okay. If you're listening, we got a few people still listening. We apologize for the sound. Just let us know right now. If it doesn't sound that great, we'll probably just cancel this stream and record this show and then upload it later so you can actually hear us. So please, if you're listening right now, we're watching the comments. Give us a comment. Let us know if it's up or down. We won't be offended. If you can't hear us, we'd rather just record this later and send it in to you. But in the meantime, that was Jeremy Carswell of Houston. He's going to be playing in a couple of weeks at Axelrad here in Houston as well. We're getting back to doing
September
some shows,
10th.
September 10th. And yeah, so check him out, all the places you listen to music. I'm going to assume, since nobody's saying anything, that things are going pretty well. So we're going to just jump into the next story. This is one that I wanted to focus on. Relates to, what is that thing, Micah? FBI entrapping
Surveillance.
people.
Oh, entrapment.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing where like the FBI, they go out there and they'll find somebody who's
they
kind of
they find
unstable.
somebody who like is really influenceable and like the new kid in the neighborhood and said they'll be your friend.
Well,
if
literally,
you, like take these explosives.
we covered this a couple of weeks ago. Remember, this was back in June. FBI's entrapment of Americans continues with latest arrest of 18-year-old with developmental issues. Remember, we were talking about this.
Dude.
His father was speaking out saying,
They must
like,
have started before he was 18.
when he was 16 years old, they
Wow.
started trying to get this kid
All
to
kinds of people aren't allowed to talk to your kid.
pledge
without your
allegiance to Al
permission.
Qaeda. But no, the FBI can pretend to be terrorists and go start messaging them on Discord and Snapchat and whatever other apps they want to. And that's what they did in this other case a couple months back. That's happening now. So that young man, unfortunately, is at the beginning of a very bad journey, and I wish him well. Now,
At the taxpayer expense.
At the taxpayer expense. Now, to the other side of coming out of this journey, we have this breaking story just in the last couple of weeks. Judge orders release of 3 of the Newburgh 4 and accuses FBI of trolling for terrorists. Okay.
Trolling?
Men convicted in post 9/11 sting, post 9/11, this all started because of 9/11, were, quote, easily manipulated petty criminals caught up in overzealous FBI scheme, the judge says. So 3 men convicted again were given unduly harsh and unjust sentences, and the judge decried the role of the FBI in radicalizing them in a plot to blow up New York synagogues and shoot down National Guard planes. They were caught up let me go ahead and find this. They were caught up more than a decade ago. You probably at one point saw the news flash, hey, these are dangerous criminals. The war on terror is working. Give us more money. We promise we caught some bad guys. But as it was claimed at the time.
You mean people might have wanted results?
I mean, this isn't even new, right, Michael? When you go back to the original reporting of this, the men themselves were saying, we were entrapped. This is, a mistake. But it's been a decade. They've been in jail now for a little bit, and I guess the judge got some new information. She says that it was a scheme driven by overzealous FBI agents and a dodgy informant, U.S. District Judge Colleen McMahon. The lead conspirator was the United States. I mean, it doesn't get more clear than that. She wrote when she granted the men's request for compassionate release, effective in 3 months. So they still got to sit there for 3 more months. That's got to suck. She said it was heinous of the men to agree to participate in what she called the government's made-for-TV movie, but the judge added the sentence was the product of a fictitious plot to do things that these men had never remotely contemplated, and they were never going to happen. She exorciated the government for sending a villain of an informant to troll among the poorest and weakest of men for terrorists who might prove susceptible to an offer of much-needed cash in exchange for committing a faux crime, which is literally what they've done in every one of the other terrorist incidents. I would say 90% of them, maybe not everyone, but by and large, it's this same story. Sure enough, an FBI agent pops up in the story and they've been there. Hey, you want to go do some terrorism? Hey, you want to do some terrorism? I got some money. And then eventually they find somebody willing to do it. The judge said that there was concern for the men's health and her own qualms about the case. She cut the 25-year mandatory minimum sentences she imposed in 2011 to time served plus 90 days. So she let them do 12 years, half of the sentence basically, which is still horrible. She said that would allow time for probation officials to prepare and for a lawyer to line up supportive housing for them, for one of the men who has a severe mental illness, by the way, but the FBI entrapped him. Some of the lawyers who are defending the men said, we are tremendously pleased that our clients are on the way home, even if it's 14 years too late. It continued, they were entrapped for their race, their religion, and working class backgrounds by a government looking to spread fear of Muslims and justify bloated budgets. Another lawyer said the prosecution should have never happened, but now at least the men will soon be out of prison. And the fourth man, who wasn't a part of this, is expected to complete his sentence in 2030. But they're saying his attorney is planning on seeking similar things. And I imagine that the judge will also give him similar things. But yeah, so when we're talking about FBI entrapment and saying, you know, I wrote an article more than a decade ago saying, hey, is the FBI the greatest threat to Americans' individual, you know, liberty and to privacy and everything? I think that there's an argument to be had. This isn't the ravings of just an anti-government conspiracy theorist. This is the ravings of a judge. What did she say, Micah? The leading conspirator was the United States government. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm going to dig deeper into this. I'm glad you brought it to us. I kind of was curious about it because, you know, obviously it's messed up when the government or a government agent is the thing that leads you, you know, down some path you wouldn't go. And I was getting into it a little bit, and you moved on. It said officials portrayed the Chromite as a ringleader of a chilling plot among extremely violent men loyal to a Pakistani terrorist group. The government later decided not to present any evidence against foreign terrorist organizations at the trial. The court complaint described him as a man seething with anti-American and anti-Semitic sentiment and eager to translate those feelings into action. Prosecutors said the defendant spent months scouting targets and securing what they thought were explosives and a surface-to-air missile, aiming to shoot down planes at the Air National Guard base in Newburgh, New York, and blow up synagogues in Riverdale and in the Bronx. They were arrested there after allegedly planting bombs that were in fact packed with inert explosives supplied by the FBI.
Never had a bomb.
Yeah.
They never had the means. They never had the motive had to be pushed into them. And you know, just like most of these cases, they have to be talked to multiple times. It's not like they're immediately like jump. Yeah, I'm ready to do terrorism. They like repeatedly come back to them and promise to be like, oh, I'm talking to this guy from the FBI or Al Qaeda. He's going to, you know, give us some weapons if we just pledge allegiance. And they build up like a little bit of case to show them like, see, he's kind of interested. Can I keep going? Can I keep going?
Yeah, they say that an informant tried to stir up with rhetoric and choose target, get them going, you know, like, come on, you know what they've done to us. Yeah, that's sad. That sounds like entrapment, right?
I hope that this sets a precedent of more cases coming forward and of more people who have been found in those situations.
Jurors convicted the men in 2010.
To take like a similar approach. I mean, to try to request a compassionate release, if at all possible.
So this judge didn't so much convict them. They won in front of
She just
jury.
handed the sentence down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess based on obviously she has to do what the jury says. So the jury could have come to another position, but I'm guessing at the time the government didn't quite, you know, they didn't quite
It's a
get the
sticky
story.
thing. That's the thing about these entrapment things. They look and smell like crime.
Yeah. And I think also there probably are people who, I mean,
I guess maybe there is a crime. It's called entrapment.
You have to put it in the context too, right? Because I think that sometimes right now, especially our friends in their 20s and under, don't remember 9/11 and don't remember the hysteria post 9/11. Like the only thing I can maybe frame of reference for you is if you think about all the hysteria about COVID going on right now. Imagine the hysteria for years about
people going on TV.
Terrorists everywhere.
Mass destruction.
There's terrorists everywhere. We need to get more money. And
you didn't see them as clowns because they seem like normal people, like generals and stuff.
Well,
right?
then you'd hear a story like the Newburgh 4. We just arrested more terrorists. The Christmas tree bomber. We got him. The shoe bomber.
Oklahoma.
All these different reports, and many of them,
I guess that was before,
similar cases of FBI entrapment. But once those pop up enough, just like with there's a new COVID variant, people get afraid and they're like, sure, whatever, go ahead, spy on people, lock them up, whatever, as long as it's going to keep me safe. And I've heard these justifications time and time again. We've heard them with the TSA. We need the TSA to keep us safer. We need
if
to
you
take
ain't
the
got
shoes
nothing
off.
to hide, why won't you take your shoes off?
So, I mean, just try to put your mind into that to understand the importance and the severity of exposing these kind of cases. All right, Micah, I'm going to pass it off to you. You got a couple here.
I guess starting with the YouTube would be pretty good since we're on YouTube and we talked about it and we promised
Let's see if we can talk about alleged misinformation about a story about medical misinformation
on the misinformation
on YouTube while streaming on YouTube.
Yeah. Wow.
Right, let's see if we can do it.
That's meta. YouTube on Tuesday announced it's creating a whole new framework to crack down on medical misinformation on the platform. I wonder what motivated that, right? Quote, in the years since we began our efforts to make YouTube a destination for high quality health content, we've learned critical lessons about developing community guidelines in line with local and global health authority guidance on topics that pose serious real world risks, such as misinformation on COVID-19, vaccines, reproductive health, harmful substances, and more. A blog post from the video sharing site read, quote, we're taking what we've learned so far about the most effective ways to tackle medical misinformation to simplify our approach for creators, viewers, and partners. The platform has faced controversy, supposedly, in recent years for the algorithm and the way it can direct viewers to misleading and extremist content. In 2021, YouTube said it removed more than on the platform. So, if you don't agree with it, or a lot of people get cancer treatments like chemo people, but some people don't. Get cured from it. So if you don't get cured, maybe we should just continue